Evening, everybody. Let's start with our motivation. And this morning we reflected briefly on the kindness of the Buddha for teaching the Dharma and the kindness of all the practitioners and lineage masters from the time of the Buddha down to today who have held those teachings and practiced them and actualized them and taught them to the next generation. And so really letting the mind rest in feeling the recipient of the kindness of all those people, even though they didn't know us, but they thought there will be generations of people to come who will need these teachings. And so they held them and practiced them and taught them. And then let's also reflect on the kindness of sentient beings who have given us so many of the other circumstances necessary for us to practice. Our parents gave us this body. Our teachers gave us an education. So many people in society doing countless jobs made the food and the clothing and shelter that we use on a daily basis. They made the transportation and books and so many things that we take for granted and use. But when we consider that, the kindness of the holy beings and then the kindness of the sentient beings towards us, it's really something quite amazing. And especially how it all comes together in our precious opportunity to meet and practice the teachings. And so let yourself feel the kindness of others and see yourself as a recipient of kindness. And as you do, then kind of automatically the wish to repay that kindness arises in the mind. And the way we're choosing to repay it is through our practice. So that while we're in samsara and after we're liberated, we can be of continuous benefit to sentient beings. So, personally speaking, I've found this meditation and the kindness of sentient beings and holy beings to be a very important meditation that has completely changed my emotional makeup. Because the way we're raised often in our society is to see to have this feeling of entitlement. You know, society owes me this and that, and people should do this and that and the other thing for me. Why? Simply because I exist. You know? And when they don't, I have every right to complain and bellyache and accuse and blame. and then, of course, feel that others have failed me, and therefore feel lonely, feel alienated, not trust other living beings. You got the picture? Do you have that inside yourself? Yeah, I think we all have that. So this meditation on the kindness is just like, opening the door to see reality, because that whole way we've been raised is not true. It's just plain old not true. And if we think about it, we start off with the kindness of our parents who gave us this body. Yeah, now you could go on to all sorts of things. Well, I didn't ask to be born, and they were just doing it because, and, it wasn't really for me. And that doesn't matter. The fact is that they had us, and they raised us, and if they couldn't raise us themselves, they found somebody who could. Yeah, because they cared about us, and they wanted us to live and be a happy, healthy human being. And we kind of moved in and did all of our kid things in our family. I don't know about you, but I didn't appreciate my parents' kindness at all. No, I wanted more, I wanted better. Yeah, all the time. Yeah. And never appreciated what my parents had to go through to raise their kids, and to give us an education, and just to put food on the table, and send us off to school, and then everything they had to undergo to discipline us. I don't think that's so much fun, bringing up a child when the child is behaving awfully, and then you have to discipline the kid. And yet, our parents did this for us out of kindness, so that we could learn to fit in society and relate to other people and not be completely obnoxious. Yeah, so, spend some time thinking about what your parents went through raising you. And, they're just trying to live their own lives as best as they can. And then we're doing our whole trip completely oblivious to what they're going through. Yeah. I mean, my mom had cancer while I was growing up. I was oblivious. All I did was think about me and what I wanted. Nothing about what was going on in the family and how my parents were dealing with my mom's illness. No, nothing. Just, I want. So, then when you think of like what our parents did for us, and that they were doing the best for us that they could, given their own abilities, given how they were raised, given their financial situation, given their emotional situation, given their interests and talents and dispositions, they did the best they could. And can we really appreciate that and see that as kindness? If we do, it erases a lot of our childhood issues. Yeah. And then, spend some time thinking about what our teachers in grade school went through, trying to teach us, and how we behaved. I mean, did we really appreciate that they were trying to give us an education and give us skills? Just learning to read and write. Yeah. And if you played sports, all the people who taught you sports, and if you did music or art, all the people who taught you that. And so every talent we have came because somebody encouraged us and helped us and taught us and, reached out to us in some way or another. And again, I don't know about you, but while I was growing up, this never struck me, that that people were really trying to help me. And then, we spend some time looking around at all the people we know and the benefit we've received from them. What our friends have done for us. That's kind of easy to see the benefit. But also what strangers have done for us. Yeah. Harold and Vicki built this house. Now, few of us met Harold and Vicki. Many of you didn't. And yet it's due to their kindness that we're able to sit here in this building and have this teaching. And there were people who made the carpeting, and people who made the fan, and people who made the PA system, and, everything we look around, the windows, the linoleum, everything was made by other people. And whatever means of transportation you used to get here, that all came because other people made it. And so as we really look around, if you're wearing glasses, they came from other people. If you're reading a book, that came from other people. Everything we use came from other people. And so in that way we say that they've been kind to us. Now we may say, but they didn't intend to be kind to me. They were just going to work to get their paycheck. Okay? For us to receive benefit, do they need to know us? Do we need to know them? No. So they may not have known us. And they may have been going to work to get their paycheck. But the bottom line is that we have what we have and are able to use what we use and stay alive because of their energies. And if they didn't do those things, we wouldn't have the things that we use and take for granted. That's really the bottom line. And so in that way we can say that we've received kindness from them. And then, then we think, well, what about all the people who've hurt me? And there we pull out our big file. Huge file of everybody who's hurt us. Everybody who's mistreated us, who hasn't appreciated our qualities, who talked bad about us behind our back, who's betrayed our trust, who cheated on us, who took the credit for a project that we did, who beat us up, all those things. Physical harm, mental harm, emotional harm, spiritual harm. We have a whole list. I haven't missed out one of them. All the people who've harmed us. Then we say, they aren't kind. They're mean, they're cruel, they're out to get me. But think about it. All these difficulties that you've gone through in your life, didn't you learn something from them? Didn't you come out of your difficulties knowing something that you didn't know before? Didn't you grow because of your difficulties? Difficulties are hard. Problems hurt. But we come out of them with having discovered resources in ourselves that we didn't know we had. And so we have to look at the people who were instrumental in causing us these hurts and pains and difficulties and realize that without what they did, we wouldn't have grown. We would still be back the way we were. So haven't we received some kindness from them? Hello? So, when we look around, everybody in one way or another has been kind to us. Whether they helped us directly, whether they helped us indirectly, and even if they harmed us, they still were kind in that we grew and came out stronger because of it. Yeah? So when we really think about this and, feel this and experience it and see how interconnected we are with other people and how dependent we are on them for everything, then we really get the sense that we've been the recipient of great kindness. Yeah? And when we feel ourselves as the recipient of kindness, all those feelings of, I can't trust people, and, they're out to get me, and I can't relate, and they don't understand, all those kind of things evaporate because we see that there's been a very close connection with everybody in one way or another. What do you think? True, not true? Or are they really out to get you? And even if they hated you and were out to get you, does that mean that they weren't kind? Does that mean that you didn't benefit? You still learned something. I know, just looking for myself, some of the people who did things to me, I although at the time I was freaking out, having really processed the experiences and learned what I learned, I have to look at them and say thank you. The way Lama Yeshe says thank you to Mao Zedong. Amazing. Yeah? Okay? So learning to see ourselves as the recipient of kindness and to see the kindness that others give. Yeah. And the point came up before that sometimes we have maybe a certain way that we would like people to show their affection to us or show their kindness to us. But maybe that's not the way that works for them to show kindness. Maybe they show kindness in a very different way. And so we don't see it because we're only looking for what we think we need. And so we miss out on a lot of the kindness that's being directed towards us. And we miss out on the affection that people are giving us and showing us because we want to have it in this way and they're giving it in that way. But they're giving it, and to kind of open our eyes and see that. It's really completely transforms how you look at things and how you relate to people. Yeah, so I think this is a very important meditation to do, not once, but repeatedly, again and again and again. And every time your mind says, yes, but they hurt me, or yes, but they put me in harm's way, or yes, but they directly harm me, or yes, but whatever it is. Stop and really think about how you've grown and how you've discovered inner resources because of that experience. And really try and see the kindness. Okay? So, that's our motivation. We've been talking about the hero and solitary realizer path. So, just to review, because you're going to, by the time we're done, you're going to have 3 different versions of it, okay? Remember, the first one I taught you was how they explain in the Theravada tradition, okay? Then the one I'm going to review right now is, we talked about it recently, that on the path of seeing, the approachers to stream entry are in the process of removing the, well, before we get to that, remember I talked about the 81 levels of afflictions, Okay. Oh, on the path of seeing, there were the eight forbearances and the 8 knowledges. Okay. And then on the path of meditation, and those had to do with acquired afflictions, eliminating those. And then on the path of meditation, then we talk about getting rid of the 81 levels of innate afflictions. Innate afflictions meaning the ones that came with us from previous lives, that are always with us in samsara. Acquired afflictions are the ones that we learn from wrong philosophies and wrong psychologies. Okay, so of course those acquired ones are going to be easier to eliminate. That's why they're eliminated on the path of seeing. Then on path of meditation we have the 81 levels that correspond with the 9 realms. Okay, so one realm is the desire realm. All of us beings who are crazen with desire. That includes hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, human beings, and desire realm gods. And then the 4 realms of the form realm and the 4 realms of the formless realm. So 9 realms, and then each realm has 9 levels of afflictions. So remember, the big of the big of the middle, the big of the small, and so on, okay, for each realm. Okay, so one way of eliminating them is on the path of seeing. You eliminate all the acquired afflictions. Yeah, the ones that you learned in Sunday school, the ones you learned in psychology class or philosophy class, all the various wrong views that we've picked up along the way. You know, that there's a permanent soul, that there's a real identity of me, that, you know, there's a creator, an absolute creator, that there's one universal cosmic energy out of which everything came, all these kinds of wrong views that we've learned. So the path of seeing, when you first see emptiness directly, eliminates those. Then on the path of meditation, and okay, so let's link this up with we had the stream enters, once returners, non-returners, and arhats. So on the stream entry, on the liberated, on the uninterrupted paths, when you're approaching stream entry, then you're in the process of eliminating those acquired afflictions. Then when you pass to the liberated path, you have completely removed them. They're not going to reappear. Okay, so both uninterrupted path and liberated path are meditative equipoises on the nature of reality and emptiness. Then the approacher to once returner is in the process, eliminating the first 6 of the 81 innate afflictions. So they're on the path of meditation, and they're eliminating the first 6. When they have eliminated the first 6, then they're called once returners. They're called once returners because they only get born in the desire realm one more time. So that's good news, because desire realm is really, our desire drags us all over the place, doesn't it? Okay. Then the person who is approaching non-returner is eliminating the afflictions number 7, 8, and 9, also from the desire realm. And when they've completely eliminated them, then they have the fruit of non-returner. And they're called non-returners because they never get born in the desire realm again. Don't return there, because they've eliminated all 9 levels, all 9 bits of the innate grasping at true existence that corresponds to the desire realm. Then the person who is approacher to arhatship or foe destroyer, when it's talking about a foe destroyer, the foe is the afflictions. And so somebody who has destroyed all the afflictions and their seeds and the karma that causes rebirth. So somebody who is approaching that in the uninterrupted path, then they are eliminating afflictions number 10 to 81. And then when they have the liberated path from that. Actually, it's not a liberated path on the path of meditation. That actually is the path of no more learning, because they are then arhats. So when they actualize the path of no more learning, then they have eliminated all 81 afflictions. So they're called foe destroyers, because they've destroyed all the foes that keep us circling in cyclic existence. Okay? Yeah? Yeah, is there a question?
Yeah, I just wonder, when you talk about the 81 levels of afflictions being correlated to the different realms, does that actually mean that the beings in the form and formless realms, as you go into the higher ones, necessarily have a less gross grasping at true existence?
Yeah, well, the afflictions in the form and formless realms are not as gross as the ones in the desire realm. Yeah. Because those beings have very deep levels of samadhi, so they've been able to suppress temporarily some of the afflictions, so they aren't, as gross. Okay, so we got that, right? Now. Okay, so we've talked about how on the path of seeing there was the uninterrupted path, the liberated path. Well, first we talked about how there's the meditative equipoise and then the subsequent realization, right? And within meditative equipoise, you have the uninterrupted path where you're eliminating the afflictions, the liberated path where they have been eliminated, and then the one that is neither, that's still a meditative equipoise on emptiness, is when you're meditating on emptiness before you attain the next uninterrupted path. Okay? And then you have your subsequent attainments, and those are the minds that you have after you come out of your meditative equipoise on emptiness. And so some of those are for the method side of the path. So with the hearers and solitary realizers, those are the minds thinking about renunciation, for example, or thinking about ethical conduct or generosity or something. And then the ones correlated with the wisdom side of the path, which is when they see things as like illusion. Okay? So when you're in meditative equipoise, there's the direct realization of emptiness. Then afterwards, when you come out of that, you still have the mistaken appearance of true existence, but you don't believe it to be true. And so you see things as like illusions, and that they appear one way but exist in another way. Okay?
Are all their minds out of meditative equipoise the subsequent attainment?
There's also, well, they have this third category too, but they're usually talking about minds that are more, they're not so manifest, like the bodhicitta, or like the renunciation in the mind of a hearer who's in meditative equipoise, or the realization of emptiness that is coloring the subsequent attainment when they're out of it.
Yeah, but this is describing then the whole of the mind that has realized emptiness. When it's not focused on emptiness, it has this exquisite quality
of false appearance.
Yeah, but it has a false appearance, but it also has this mind of subsequent attainment where it's not doing anything but either looking at wisdom or looking at method.
Can somebody at that level forget about the illusory appearance of things? That's what you're asking. Maybe, but it would seem to me that they would come back to it pretty quickly.
Right, so they're never going to get hung up on the spaghetti was really good, so they're going to lose that.
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting because the way it's described in the Theravada path, stream destroyers, they have desire and they have lust and they get angry and all these things, but they've also realized emptiness. So I don't know, sometimes I find that a little bit difficult. I would think that once you've had direct realization of emptiness, it would really kind of have a very profound effect. But then on the other hand, you can see we've had eons of grasping at true existence, and so why do we think that just having realized it, you would never ever again have, buy into that false appearance? It seems to me you could buy into that false appearance just because of the force of the previous habit. Yeah, of course, your anger or whatever wouldn't be very strong. Yeah, certainly not like ours, like mine. But, something could arise there, seems like. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the bigger picture. This presentation is the way it's presented. It's a Prasangika presentation.
Oh, I'm getting to the Prasangika presentation.
So this is how a Theravada Buddhist would describe?
No, the one that I just did is kind of the ones, let's say, that the Chittamadrans or the Svatantrika Madhyamakas would describe. What the Prasangikas say, okay, is that your 81 afflictions, they aren't eliminated sequentially, but all of the big are eliminated together, all of the big of the middle eliminated together, all the big of the small are eliminated together. So you actually have 9 steps, not 81 steps. Okay, so the Prasangikas say on the path of meditation, you have an uninterrupted path in which you have 9 uninterrupted paths, and you have 8 liberated paths, okay? And then your last, after the last uninterrupted path, then it's the path of no more learning, okay? So they have a different version yet, and that's why from that Prasangika explanation, they would say that even when you're eliminating the big of the big, you're already an approacher to arhatship. So how they would explain the stream enter, once returner, non-returner, I haven't read anything that explains that. Okay? So you see there's different ways of presenting the path by different systems. Okay. Okay, so the last uninterrupted path is the Vajra-like meditative stabilization. And then that, when you arise from that, if you're a hearer, solitary realizer, you have the path of no more learning of that vehicle. But it doesn't mean they no longer have anything to learn, because eventually the Buddha is going to come and wake them up and say, your solitary peace is very nice, but what about other sentient beings? Okay, and so this is, from the Mahayana viewpoint, a very big difference between the vehicles. That when you're doing the hearer solitary realizer vehicle, your motivation is renunciation from cyclic existence. You want to get yourself out of cyclic existence. Some people cultivate love and compassion, some don't, they cultivate it to bigger or smaller degrees, because it isn't a requirement on that path. And then when they attain the path of no more learning, okay, from the viewpoint of, this gets really interesting, okay? From the viewpoint of the lower schools, they talk about the nirvana with remainder and the nirvana without remainder. Okay? So for the lower philosophical tenet schools, the nirvana with remainder is an arhat that has the remainder of their contaminated body, or their polluted body, because when they were born in that life, they were still born under the influence of afflictions and karma. So that body is still considered polluted because it was born on, in that way. And so they still, even though they have attained nirvana in that last lifetime, their body is still polluted, so it's called nirvana with remainder, because they still have the remainder of that body. That's why they're still alive. Then, when they pass away, at the end of that lifetime in which they attain nirvana, then they attain nirvana without remainder, because they've shed this polluted body. Okay. Now the question comes, what happens in nirvana without remainder? Okay. Now, from the view of some of the lower schools, some of them at least, the Vaibhasika and Sautrantika, say that the consciousness of the arhat ceases. And when I was in Thailand, I asked about that, and they were saying, it's not so clear in the Pali Canon, and many people do believe that the continuity of consciousness of the arhat ceases when they attain nirvana without remainder. Why do they say it ceases? Because consciousness came into existence simply because there was ignorance and karma. Okay, so when you're no longer reborn under the influence of ignorance and karma and afflictions, then there's no more polluted consciousness, because you don't get born with your 5 polluted aggregates, and one of that aggregates is your body, and then 4 are your mind. So you're no longer born with that. So when you attain nirvana without remainder, you don't have your 4 polluted mental aggregates either, so then there's nothing. Okay, so the prasangika go, and have a very different stand, saying, but there's still the continuity of consciousness. Yeah, and just because you've eliminated the afflictions, it doesn't mean that the continuity of clarity and awareness and ability to perceive and experience has totally ceased altogether. There's the possibility of having a pure consciousness. Okay, so some Theravadas say, yeah, the consciousness goes out of existence. But when I was reading Ajahn Mun's biography, he was recounting some of his visions, and he had a vision of the Buddha and all these arhats sitting together. And at that point he said, I don't think that the consciousness ceases after you attain arhatship, because I had the vision of all these guys. Yeah? So there are some Theravada people who think that there is a continuity. Okay? It's kind of different. There's not one particular view on this.
Can I ask a question about this? I was reading Geshe-Tashi Sering in the Four Noble Truths talking about this, and the way he explained it, I don't quite get, but he said that from the lower school's point of view, the aggregates themselves are dukkha.
Yes.
So
our viewpoint too, the aggregates are dukkha.
Well, actually, he said, from our viewpoint, it's the clinging to the aggregates that are dukkha. Therefore, they can be purified and continue. So that was the distinction that I always thought. We thought the aggregates were dukkha too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding, that the aggregates themselves are dukkha. But, when you abandon the polluted aggregates, you can still have unpolluted aggregates.
Well, I'll pull this out and show you.
Okay.
It was a little confusing for me.
Okay. So, so there's this kind of talk. So from the viewpoint of the Mahayana schools, the consciousness of the arhat continues. They are in a state of meditative equipoise on emptiness, and they have a very subtle body called a mental body, okay, that is formed due to the predispositions of clinging to true existence, in other words, due to the cognitive obscurations. Yeah, and you know, and it's formed out of that, and then they stay in their meditative equipoise until the Buddha comes and wakes them up and says, it's wonderful abiding in your own personal nirvana, but there's all these other sentient beings that are in samsara, and come on, let's get up and help them. Okay? So at which point the arhats re-enter the Mahayana path, but at the very first path, the path of accumulation, because they still have to accumulate all the great merit that the bodhisattvas do. Even though they've realized emptiness, they still have to accumulate the great merit on the bodhisattva path and progress through the bodhisattva vehicle from beginning to end. So that's why our teachers really encourage us that, you know, although it's very enticing to like go for our own liberation instantly, because when we really get a feeling of how bad samsara is, that it's, in terms of attaining full awakening, it's much quicker to enter the Mahayana path directly, because you could spend so long in your blissful state of nirvana yourself. Whereas, you know, if you enter the Mahayana directly, you could be busy creating all the merit that results in Buddhahood during that time. Okay?
The aggregates, when they go back and start again, are the aggregates still polluted or non-polluted?
When the arhats go back to the Mahayana path of accumulation, they have unpolluted aggregates.
Oh, so they're lucky.
Yeah. You know, I mean, they're not polluted by afflictions, but they still are taken under the influence of the cognitive obscurations. So there's still some pollution from the cognitive obscurations that are causing that. Okay? Yeah?
Are they accumulating merit while they're in this state of blissed out?
No, that's the thing. When they're in their state of solitary peace, they're not accumulating merit. They're just dwelling in the realization of emptiness and perceiving nirvana directly, but they're not creating merit through that. So that's why they have to go back and start at the beginning of the Mahayana and do the far-reaching practices, not just ordinary generosity, but far-reaching generosity. Not just ordinary ethical conduct, but far-reaching ethical conduct.
What is it different?
The difference is that when you do the far-reaching practices, it's motivated by bodhicitta, not simply by renunciation and wish for your own liberation. And also, you're seeing the action, object, and agent as empty of true existence when you're doing like generosity or ethical conduct. Okay, so you're really integrating the bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness while you're giving generosity or keeping your precepts or practicing fortitude and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's a difference between, you know, me giving somebody something, because, you know, who knows what motivation I have. You know, if I'm lucky, I generate artificial bodhicitta. If I'm not lucky, then it's, I hope this person likes me. Yeah, but in any case, either of those motivations are quite different than a bodhisattva who is thinking, I'm giving this, you know, so that I may attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And I'm seeing myself and the action and what I'm giving as all dependently arising but empty of true existence. So that's like completely a different level of understanding of when you give, isn't it?
Arhat would already have that, wouldn't
The arhat may be meditating on, you know, the circle of the three, but maybe not as conscientiously, because bodhisattvas, when they practice, they approach emptiness from many, many perspectives. They learn many, many reasonings to prove emptiness. Whereas on the arhat, on the here in solitary realizer, they usually take one method and then just stick with that. Okay? So, you know, the bodhisattva, you're really approaching emptiness in so many different ways, integrating that so much. Yeah, because on the Bodhisattva path, you really want to see that, you really want to see the true truths simultaneously, because you want to attain the form body and the truth body, you know. And so the truth body is the mind of the Buddha. That's great, but the real thing that you're going to use to benefit sentient beings is the form body. So to be able to make all these emanations and send them out to other sentient beings, you have to have a very profound understanding of conventional truth. Okay?
Not at all.
Hmm?
The arhat's not going to that.
Well, you know, they may see things as illusion-like. Yeah, but they're not going to emphasize that in their practice the same way the bodhisattvas are, because the bodhisattvas have the intention of, I want to develop a form body so that I can spontaneously and effortlessly manifest in all the different ways that are necessary to benefit sentient beings. Whereas somebody on the hero solitary realizer path, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking, I want to get out. Okay? So there's a difference there. Yeah. So that's why, you know, our teachers from the beginning are, you know, always emphasizing bodhicitta, bodhicitta, love, compassion. Not just love, compassion, bodhicitta. You know, many people confuse and think, oh, bodhicitta is love and compassion. It's not. It's something beyond love and compassion. Yeah, but to really start, you know, thinking about that from the very beginning and continually plant seeds in our mind stream for that motivation. Mm-hmm. Very, very important. Yeah? Okay. So we were talking about I just want to mention one other thing, just while we're talking about nirvana with and without remainder. In DC, you may remember at one point, His Holiness was talking about the 4 kinds of nirvana. Nirvana with remainder, without remainder. Non-abiding nirvana, which is the nirvana of a Buddha, which does not abide in samsara or in personal peace. And natural nirvana, which is the emptiness of the mind. And he was saying, because natural nirvana exists, it's possible to attain the other 3 kinds of nirvana. Okay, so that natural nirvana, the emptiness of inherent existence of our mind, that is there right now, even though our mind itself is polluted, that is one part of our Buddha nature. And so because the mind by its very nature lacks inherent existence, it becomes possible to become a fully enlightened Buddha. If our mind had inherent existence, then it would be, you know, the anger would be inherently existent, you couldn't remove it. Yeah, the greed, the afflictions, all the afflictions would be inherently existent part of the mind, but they aren't. Okay? I'll prepare you right now, but in the upper schools, or no, in the Prasangika, how they define nirvana with and without remainder is different. Okay, the lower schools do it as I just described. With the Prasangika, the remainder is the appearance of true existence. Okay? So nirvana with remainder would be after you come out of your meditative equipoise, when things are still appearing true existent to you. That's nirvana with remainder. Okay? Nirvana without remainder would be the meditative equipoise on emptiness, where there's no longer the appearance of true existence. Okay, so there's a different definition of what remainder is there. Okay.
That would then be synonymous with non-abiding nirvana.
Which one?
The Prasangika view of nirvana without remainder.
Would,
Come out and have no appearance of true existence, and only a Buddha has that, right?
yeah. Yeah. But, well, Yeah, from their own side, the Buddha doesn't have the appearance of true existence. So that, the non-abiding nirvana, actually that could still be bodhisattvas in meditative equipoise, high-level bodhisattvas in meditative equipoise, like the 8th bhumi and above, okay? Because they've attained nirvana, they no longer have the afflictions on the 8th bhumi. And in meditative equipoise, they no longer have while they're in meditative equipoise, they don't have the appearance of true existence. Okay? Okay. So for those of you who haven't been following this from the very beginning, it might be a little confusing for you. Okay? But don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. You know, you're hearing something, something's going in, you're picking up something, learning some terminology, and, you know, as you do that, then next time you hear it, it'll make more sense, and so on. Okay? But it's what I really like about these teachings on Salam, path and grounds and path, is that it provides a roadmap on how you go about attaining nirvana, what you do, what you realize along the way. Yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily hard and fast exactly for each person. There might be, you know, it's not cookie cutter, nothing's cookie cutter, but, you know, at least it provides a pretty reliable grid, you know, so that we know where we're going and how to measure progress. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Can I ask another question?
Uh-huh.
And you can tell me if this is totally like not thinking right. But one of the things that I'm a little bit confused about is the timing of all these things, because it sounds like something you're meditating along and then one instant you're in the next place, but then how long are you? Are you in the next place for like a whole lifetime, or? You know, so I had the idea that I should plot these things out, but also try to plot the time frame of them. Maybe that's not so smart of me.
Okay, no, it makes sense. Okay. On the hearer path, okay, from, they say that to actualize the hearer path, from path of accumulation to path of no more learning, it takes at least 3 lifetimes. Okay, often more, but at least 3, because you need at least 3 lifetimes of accumulating merit. For the solitary realizer path, it takes 100 eons, at least 100 eons. Okay, for the bodhisattva path, it takes 3 countless great eons. So all this is in terms of the merit that you're accumulating, because to really gain the profound insight into emptiness, you need a lot of merit that is, you know, acting as the ground and the support so that your mind has the strength to realize the ultimate truth.
So it's not a single session.
Okay, what is in a single session, okay, is, okay, when we had the meditative equipoise that is neither, okay, so that's all the times you're meditating on emptiness. That's in preparation for going on to the next uninterrupted path. So the last time you're meditating on emptiness before the next uninterrupted path, okay, that's in one session. And in the same session, you go into the uninterrupted path for a certain level of afflictions. And in that same session, then you go to the liberated path that has eliminated that certain level of afflictions. And then you come out of your meditative equipoise, and now you are in subsequent attainment. When you next go into meditative equipoise on emptiness, then you're in the meditative equipoise, which is neither again.
You stay there for a lifetime.
Well, it could be a while, because you're really having to integrate the understanding of emptiness with your mind again and again and again until that wisdom is strong enough and the merit sufficient enough to eliminate the next level of afflictions. Okay? So that may take some lifetimes, it may take an eon. Bodhisattva path, it takes much longer.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Okay?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but that thing of the, the last meditative equipoise that is neither, and the uninterrupted path and the liberated path, for that certain level of afflictions that's getting eliminated, that all happens in one meditation session. Okay? But then afterwards, I mean, you need to create a lot of merit. Yeah, so you're in subsequent attainment at that time, doing all sorts of different things, and then you're also meditating at that time. Okay? Going into meditative equipoise and emptiness again. And then you may be doing other meditations as well, too. Okay? Uh-huh.
Could you talk more about the union of serenity and insight?
Okay, the union of...
Why they go to all the book learning for so long first, so that they actually have... I'm kind of interested in the process.
Okay, so to gain the unity of serenity and insight on emptiness. Because you can have a unity of serenity and insight that isn't on emptiness. But to gain the one that's on emptiness, that's the demarcation that gets you into the second path, the path of preparation. So before, you have to have serenity, okay? You also have to have the correct view of emptiness. Yeah. Then, when you're meditating on emptiness, see, usually when you use serenity, it's the stillness of the mind, it's your stabilizing meditation that causes the mental factor of responsiveness or pliancy, however you want to translate it, to arise. And that is, what puts you into serenity. And usually, doing analysis, exploring how things exist and do they exist the way they appear, usually that disturbs the mind of serenity and inhibits the responsiveness or pliancy. When you get to a deep state of concentration in which the analysis itself, when you can actively explore the nature of reality, and that exploration and investigation itself is what makes the pliancy arise. Then you have the union of serenity and insight.
It's funny to me, that makes sense, and then I wonder about the Buddha's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it struck me when, again, when you told the story of he had already attained a lot of these concentrations.
Right.
But then, the night of his enlightenment, he added the wisdom side that he hadn't had before.
Yeah.
Is the way to look at that.
Yeah.
So he was actually then able to actualize that unity.
Yeah.
Which he might not have done before, because he just had the serenity side.
Yeah, he had the serenity. Yeah. So they say that he went from path of preparation to path of no more learning in one lifetime, if you take the Buddha's biography on a literal way. Yeah. But normally, when you have the Prasangika view, then they would say actually the Buddha was enlightened long before that. Yeah. And then he was showing that way.
This sounds like a silly question, but it isn't. So you wouldn't really be on the chore rota if you were doing this kind of level of meditation, right? I mean, it would be a lifetime of just being in retreat.
You're always on the chore rota because you always have to eat. You always have to take care of this body. I mean, I look at the meditators who were above Dharamsala. Maybe they had an attendant who carried the food up from the market every week, although some of them would walk down to the market to get their own food and carry it up. But then they still had to carry their water from the stream. They still had to sweep their own place. They still had to refill the kerosene stove and cook their own tea. Yeah. Yeah, we have this kind of notion that, you just go off to the forest and, you're in samadhi all the time and everybody else waits on you. Yeah, if you look in the lives of the great masters, most of them were carrying their own water and chopping their own wood and cooking their own tea and doing all these things. Yeah, unless you have an attendant, but then when you have an attendant, you have the attendant who's always fussing over you too. So, yeah.
I also have a question related to the time frame. That's and just for the question to make sense at first, want to double check that. Is it the same in the Bodhisattva yana that the acquired afflictions are eliminated on the path of seeing?
Yes.
So if a bodhisattva is, I think it's 2 countless great eons from the path of accumulation and the path of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if a
No, it's one. Path of accumulation and path of preparation for bodhisattvas is 1 countless great eon.
So such a long frame of time accumulating there, being a bodhisattva. It doesn't make sense that they would be taking rebirth in a situation where they would be learning wrong views.
Yeah, they may not have learned, but you still have some memory of them from the past. And still you can be in a situation, when you go to the monasteries, you learn non-Buddhist views so that you can refute them. Yeah, and so part of your mind might get a little bit fond of that view while you're studying it. That's why there's one bodhisattva vow of not getting fond of the wrong views while you're studying them. But you do study them so that you can really see if they're true or not. Okay. So before next time, read from the root text, the section that says fundamental vehicle paths. We've gone over all the material in that, but we haven't read the text. So next session we'll go through and we'll read the text and use that as a review of everything that we've talked about so far. Okay? Because I didn't do it according, explain it while in the text, because the text is very succinct and the language is a little bit not what you're used to. Okay? But now that we kind of know it, we can go back and read the text and figure out what they're talking about. Okay.
May the spiritual
Teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual masters be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losong's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born of no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West Florida.